Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for this segment, we have Tammy Trenta, founder and CEO of Family Financial, to discuss 5 strategies to consider for anyone approaching retirement. It is great to have you with us, Tammy. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Thanks, Jill.
All right. And the first one, of course, planning for longevity as we are living longer as medical technology advances, and we're trying to find different ways to stay healthy.
Yes, people are living longer. And, as you know, we're in a time of inflation that we haven't seen in 40 years. And so we need to make sure that clients' money lasts. And now more than ever, we need to be good advocates and good stewards of our money. At our firm, we like to run our financial projections until age 100. And give people a sense of confidence that they need to make those decisions to retire. We, of course, incorporate inflation, and we do another tool, which you may be familiar with. It's a Monte Carlo, and the Monte Carlo simulation will do 1,000 market trials with all different types of market conditions, both good and bad. So we like to see an 80% probability on that. So even in the worst markets, if a client has an 80% chance of success, then we have a high level of confidence that they will meet their financial goals.
Which lends to the second step, right? Gaining financial clarity.
Yes. And so, I don't think, especially in a time like this, that going into retirement can seem scary, and you want to make sure you've got all of your ducks in a row. So availing yourself to advice so that they can incorporate all those things that you might not think about. Emergencies come up, unexpected things happen. So we have to put a buffer in for things like that. I think having a certified financial planner on your team is really important, and ideally someone who is a fiduciary, who has a legal obligation to recommend investment strategies that are really in your best interest and not theirs.
And of course, this is trading and investing 101, right? The third one, keep your emotions in check.
Yes. And honestly, that's probably the hardest aspect of it. I think in volatile markets, so much of our job here is psychologist and sitting with clients and walking them through the best and worst scenarios and trying to help them take the emotions out of it so that any fear and uncertainty that they have gets alleviated, because fear and uncertainty will only cloud decision making. And it's one of the big reasons why individual investors don't do as well in the markets as an investor who actually has an advisor.
And Tammy, the fourth strategy is one that really resonates with me: insulating your income from market risk.
Yes. And so I think that is something that a lot of investors don't think about. There's this common conception that you should have a 60% of your portfolio in stocks and 40% in bonds. And that's a generality, but really when we go through the process and do planning, every client is different and they have a different end game. So when you can, especially in this environment, you want to keep 3 to 6 months of your emergency savings in an interest-bearing account. And the one silver lining of inflation is that money markets are in like the 3s and 4s right now. So if you can do that, you've got a buffer. And then what we do is we take 3 to 5 years of withdrawals from the portfolio in more stable investments. So like more short-term fixed income investments. And that way, if we hit a rough patch in the market and it lasts a few years, that retirees are pulling from bonds as opposed to stocks. And so we never want to liquidate stocks when they're down.
Right. And then the fifth and final one, timing Social Security withdrawals. I have a couple questions around that. When do they start? And then if we are living longer, what does that strategy look like?
So that's a great question, Jill. When you retire, you don't necessarily have to take your benefits when you decide to retire. And I actually like to use the word financial independence because retirement makes us feel old, and so many people aren't now when they retire. But the earliest you can take it is at 62. But what a lot of people don't know is that if you have a spouse and your spouse is still earning income and you decide to take your benefit at 62, you actually phase out of your benefit because there is earned income. So planning Social Security is really important. And one of the things that we like to do is when we do a financial projection, we look to see if there are pockets where we can capture the benefit under a lower tax threshold so that it allows people to keep more of their Social Security benefits and mitigate it from taxes as much as possible.
Right. And so I understand it correctly. Let's say you're still working at 62. Do you have to take them, or can you save it so that they last longer? How does that work?
So if you're still working, you can take it. You should not, because you will be phased out of your benefit if there is additional earned income in your household. So the full retirement age is 67. So if you're age 67, you can still take it and have earned income. But the question is, should you take it? Because if someone is still working in your house at age 67, it's likely you're going to be at a higher tax threshold. So what I think is fascinating is between 67 and 70, which is the latest that you can take your benefit, you get a 25% increase in benefit, which equates to about 8% per year. And that's a pretty decent return for delaying it. So if you have the ability to delay it till age 70, you know that people are generally living longer, barring any health issues or individual circumstances, then you'll be able to take your benefit at a lower tax bracket.
Yeah. And Tammy, just to wrap up here, one last question. Why should investors not solely rely on Social Security benefits and think about investments in other areas of the market?
That's a great question. So, in the old days, people had pensions. And so you worked for a company for many years and you'd get a payout. And, still many, government workers, police officers, teachers have their pension. And 50 years ago, they started the 401k. And so that sort of put the onus on the employees to make sure that they're saving. Social Security, if nothing has changed, is scheduled to run out in 13 years. Now, I happen to think that they'll do things to modify that, but Social Security represents such a small percentage of people's overall income. So there needs to be some sort of accumulation besides Social Security, because you don't want to be in your golden years and be worried about financial insecurity.
All right, Tammy, appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thank you.